Hello and welcome to the channel yet again. I have a video today that will describe to you a time in my life where I most certainly needed a second opinion, but I didn't get one, and I still, actually 20 years later, suffer from the consequences. I was in the process, I bought a clinic, the most expensive clinic in my country at that point. And I allied myself with lawyers and accountants and everything I could, because I realized that I am not an expert on this area. So I allied myself with experts, and as you know, I have a little bit of a caveat there. So I bought a clinic, and it turned out that there were actually, the patients were there, because you can't cheat with that. You have a public kind of register that you can't really cheat with that. You can't say that you have more patients than you actually have. So that was not the case. And I actually hired the former owner sort of to have a transition period. So I did everything I could to be careful as I could be, in realizing that I am not an expert on buying and selling clinics. So I got started, and I kind of found out that there were not that many patients for me. There should be patients enough for more than 2 dentists full time, and he was employed half time. So again, I was trying to be very careful and think a lot, and not just jump in there with the total lack of responsibility. But still, there was no patients in my book. I wasn't booked as much as I would have liked. I have started several jobs. So I know that it will take time, several different jobs, and it takes time before they kind of get used to you and people sort of drift over to you rather than the old dentist, or in that case, when I was employed, the owner of the clinic. And actually, you know, I've had later on patients that choose me rather than going to their old dentist. That's the way it is. Not to polish my ego though. But I never saw these patients. They never came to me. I never had my book filled up or my day filled up, fully booked. So I called my lawyer, my personal expert. Unfortunately, I called him on the phone because I suspected, like most people do, that well, why would he cheat me? He's on my side. He's my expert. He's my advisor. So I called him, and you know, he was, as lawyers sometimes are. I'm sorry, but that's the way I see you guys. He was pretty arrogant about it and told me that, well, how many clinics have you bought before? And I had bought none. It was my first. He says, maybe you should just, and I was also young, of course, and maybe I should just lay down the stress and just give it a rest and find out that things will be all right. So I continued, and I still didn't have any patients, and I still didn't get much reaction from my expert, and that is in quotation marks. So nothing really happened for a long time, until even I realized, and the bank and everybody else realized, this is not going to work out. And I tried to get rid of the former owner based on the fact that he was a very, very, very poor dentist. I mean, not financially, but as an expert. Sorry. So it became obvious, even for the lawyers, that there's something that is not going to function. And at this time, they had passed 1, maybe even 2 years. I don't remember quite, because I tried to forget all this. But some time has passed, and I sort of thought to myself, I'm really going to give it a lot of chance to turn around, and it should be obvious to my experts that there was something wrong. It wasn't just me in my young age at the time. So everything was rolled out. I had to go to court with him, and I actually demonstrated he was a bad dentist, so there was no reason not to fire him, which I did. And I put out the whole case, and you know, with my lawyer in court. And I just know now that the judge was just sitting there waiting to say that, well, that may all very well be, but too much time has passed. Because what I now know is that you cannot, when you are a professional making a deal or making a trade with other professionals, you don't have very much time. A normal consumer has much more hold on if they bought something, and they can, kind of ask their money back, and it's not easy, but it can be done. But when you are two professionals, you don't have a lot of time. It's months, not years, and not half years even, perhaps. So, if I had had a lawyer at that time, or rather if I had had a second opinion lawyer, I would have asked him, how long time am I going to have to accept that I don't have, that he's making all the patients and I'm having none, and what can I do in this situation? And maybe, perhaps, if I had a second opinion, and I would tell them that my expert, my lawyer says that, I should just wait. And I can only hope that he would have said, no, you can't wait, because there's such a thing as when professionals trade with each other, you do not have all that time, or that much time to make a claim. So even if I would have lost the case, which I would have after a few months, they would have said, yeah, man, come on, you're young, you are inexperienced, So I would probably have lost the case at first. But in my world, if I had sued him for the money back at that point, I could have returned to that case and say, look what's happening. And I wouldn't have been too late. They would have had to go back and say, okay, it seemed like, because you can't evaluate a clinic. It's not like buying a machine and it doesn't work. No, you cannot do that. It takes time before you find out if you actually, the patients come and so on. But in those days, you didn't really bother with that, because the general concept was that you lose 10, maybe maximum 15% of your patients. And I lost 75. He can't, at least I can't prove that he sold any patients twice. He can prove that the numbers are correct. There was a lot of patients in the clinic. But what I think happened, and that is not really relevant here, perhaps, but what I think happened is that he was a very popular dentist in spite of the fact that he was not very good. Which again tells me that you really, really, really need a second opinion, because a lot of people have recommended him, but he had a lot of patients. He was very popular, but he wasn't very good. In fact, he destroyed these people, some of them. Didn't do what had to be done, and did things probably that shouldn't be done. So he was a really bad dentist. So in my case, if I had had a second opinion lawyer who simply had nothing to do in this case except for advising me, and maybe against this other lawyer, and say, or no, not against him, not pro him, just simply say that no, your lawyer hasn't thought about this. And all I had to do was to formulate a question. What is it I want to know? I of course thought about getting other advisors and other lawyers, but you sit in the situation and say, then I have to start all over again. I have to give them all the acts of the case and everything, and we have to start from the beginning. But that's not what you do with a second opinion lawyer in this case. You simply formulate your question and you tell him what your information has been from your lawyer. And he might have said, if I had been lucky, at least there's twice the chance that he would have said, no, you can't wait. You got to do something about this now. Or maybe he would be, but I should have learned to trust my intuition, because my intuition said, and as I've mentioned that in another video, my intuition said, no way this is right. I have started several jobs, but you are under fire, you are stressed, you may not think as clear as you can hope that a person that is outside the war zone will think in the plan. And my advice to somebody in that situation today would be, sue him for your money back. And then you probably lose, but then the case can be reopened. And you can make your original claim again and say that, this is what happened. I never saw these patients. It is not me. I did not scare them away in any way, shape or form whatsoever. They were never there. At least not for me. Maybe for him, but not for me. And that is all you need to claim if you want your money back. Because then in a short period you say, this does not represent the same value for me as it did for him as a dentist. Meaning that, that it's not about who's done what to whom. It's more like it does not have that kind of value. Like a machine that breaks down after a short time or doesn't do what it has been told you it will do, then you simply just say no. It's not worth it. So this is one episode in my life that guides me towards this idea about second opinion, whatever. In my case, dentist. Because people that are not professionals, even if you ally yourself with a lot of experts, if they don't make sense to you, if you have a question, if you have a problem and they just try to do what they did to me, say that, play on my ego saying you're probably very young and it's the first time you bought a clinic. My question to them would be, is this the first time you advise people buying clinics? And I actually did that. And later on I said, maybe you should pay me 2,000 crowns, which would be a couple of $100 per hour, to give you advice. So, get your second opinion. You know, the usual thing, subscribe, you know, share this so that we can spread this out to as many people as possible. Because even today, what happened the last 2 years, we are now 2022, you must have understood one thing at least from all this situation, at least in the world today, that experts, they don't agree necessarily. So you have to take different experts and filter them to your own intuition, what you think sounds right. Then you probably get the result you want. I'm signing out. Goodbye for now.